Hello and welcome to another jungle video, and in this one we shall be looking at all the different playstyles you can use to carry as an assassin jungler. Yes, it's been almost a year since the last time we made this video, and once again we shall feature the perennial Kha'Zix. And of course it's worth noting that he just received that 20% isolation buff on his Q, so it's a great time to have a look at all the rune sets, playstyles, and other variables that you need in order to carry with this class of jungler. So yes, while Kha'Zix will be the lens through which we look at how to do this, all of these other junglers on your screen now can benefit from this video and these particular playstyles, as well as the decisions and rune choices. And as always, if you enjoy the videos, please consider leaving a like and of course subscribing, and maybe heading to the Patreon if you want to support the content that way. And with that intro done, without hesitation, let's begin. So we do have 3 core gameplay examples I would like to go over, except I've done a lot of videos talking about Conqueror Kha'Zix and Conqueror assassins. Yes, that nerf hurts. Yes, it isn't really the most ideal change. However, a lot of assassins can stack it almost instantaneously anyway. This means despite there being an extra tick to the ramp up time, the damage sustained, the reason you take it for bruises, HP stackers, and so on, still holds true. And this can be the same for any assassin that you're playing, Rengar in particular as well. A lot of the variation in the rune sets affects not only your game plan, but also how you itemize. So I don't really want to repeat everything I've talked about with the Conqueror style of Kha'Zix in Season 10 because I did a video on Ogurin getting rank 1 using that particular style. I will leave that link for you below. But suffice it to say, yes, you can still go Conqueror, yes, you can still go Cleaver into Duskblade, and yes, you can still afford to evolve R first. However, welcome to the new world where basically everyone in Korea is evolving Q first and going different sorts of rune sets. And a lot of the shifts depending on what kind of playstyle you want to accomplish, so each of our games will have a different scenario. And the first game we'll talk about is the most quote-unquote normal. He's against a Kayn, a strong meta champion, very fast at farming, thinks he's the king of edgelords until he meets an evolved Q Kha'Zix. However, this time, as you'll see on screen, he is running phase rush. With added damage doesn't necessarily mean you need to add more damage with your runes. It means you can actually go into other areas to shore weaknesses or add a new dynamic. Again, Ogurin and many other Korean Kha'Zixes in the past have run phase rush, just not currently in the past year. However, that rune is basically immensely popular. Nimbus Club is almost disgusting. Celerity makes you go zoom zoom, and water walking is like being a duck on water. The secondary page also allows you then to keep sudden impact and ravenous, add some attack speed for your clears to shore up that lack of DPS. And suddenly Kha'Zix is able to float around fights, stick to targets, and also, get out of bad situations. And as you see, in terms of first clears, there are many options. We will look at multiple different ones in this video. Now, a classic assassin fantasy, through Kha'Zix especially, is getting 3 or 4 camps into some sort of impact. With Evelyn and other sort of farming assassins, yes, you can afford to scale, yes, you can afford to farm, but ideally we want leads. This means a simple blue side into 1 camp clear is enough to go bottom lane. Kayn starting topside will sequence down and farms much faster than you. Wukong is a bit of a monkey to gank. You kind of want your bottom lane to get ahead. You have a Sejuani, nice CC stacking. It's a very gankable lane. And when you look around your map while you're clearing, as you should always be, see which lanes are in prime position for ganking, be ready to change your approach. However, in this case, of course, enemy bottom lane is pushing. Kha'Zix heads down there and can now do a nice cleanup gank. Now the thing is, in these kinds of situations, being able to use flash to get Nimbus proc, use your damage to get phase rush, it means as a champion without CC, you can afford to stick to targets. However, please in your mind track where the enemy jungler is, because if Kayn shows up through the wall, as he always does, well then you die. Don't overcommit, take your win, know you can always farm, you have the scalability, and that's the thing about assassins. Yes, you want to play aggressively, intelligently, and you are an omnivore jungler, which means you do scale, and early mistakes aren't too punishing, except Kayn is his own late game nightmare. Right, respawn, make sure you head to the other side crab. Kayn wouldn't have secured that already. Don't farm, get that first. If there's an opportunistic gank in mid lane or top lane, adjust your pathing and clean up. The phase rush proc means that even though Akali TPs, well guess what, we can run away. And run away in such a way that Monty Python would be very proud. And it's also worth noting that when you're against a farming jungler, even if it's one that can scrap, fight, and get late game forms, their farm sequencing can be very predictable. So at this point, you want to go Grump down, Kayn is going to go Krugs down, and you should meet on the bottom side. The thing is, if you stop to probe for gank in the mid lane, if you delay or clear vision of any kind, you will be further behind than you already were going to be because they just farm much faster than you. But here is the power of assassins, Kha'Zix, and it doesn't matter what rune you're taking, counter ganks and clean up ganks. Now fortunately LeBlanc is helped out, so you get the kill because of your mid laner, but it's really more the principle than otherwise, because if you don't show up and they all survive 1 HP, well, you missed out on a triple kill. So make sure you're adhering to this good practice, counter gank these tower dives, and make sure you get some sort of experience either holding the wave or through cleanup kills. Right, Krugs down, back to base, evolve your Q, finish your warrior, head to the mid lane. And now you have a choice. You know full well the Kayn's gonna go topside, and you will watch him do that while he gets a very nice gank off. You as Kha'Zix now have the option of opening up the field and controlling the tempo of the game. Could go blue side, could do the Herald. Could go bot side to do your red and maybe a dragon. However, if you're going to do that, it's a very good idea to use lane ganks. Assassins like Kha'Zix, Rengar, and Evelynn all have this level 6 camo spike, and almost always they don't use a lane gank like this Kha'Zix does here. If you have CC in the mid lane, let's just ult in through the tower. It avoids vision, you don't show, it's quicker, and because Kayn is on the top side and you did evolve Q, you get that reset on the cooldown versus isolated targets, and so farming and taking monsters is very easy. Now here it's most likely he will take Herald as a counterplay and take your whole blue side, so you should do the same thing in kind and then reset. The concept of resetting as an assassin is very huge, purely because you scale so disgustingly well with items. Too many times the Kha'Zix will be really giga fed, sit around stroking their antennas and trying to get more and more kills, sitting on 1, 2, 3k gold, and I see it all the time in coaching. Now to this point, a lot of Kha'Zix players, those that particularly like the R evolve style, you can of course still do it, is because even if you're passive pre-6, once you get to 6 and post-6, you really want to look to be active. If you were going Harvest R evolve like in the video I released a couple of months ago, then you're really looking to stack it and be in almost every fight, all over the map. The thing is that rune set and evolve choice was sort of forcing you into a playstyle that's good for almost any assassin as long as you do it correctly. Now in this case, we knew that Kayn was topside, he took Herald, took all his stuff, he has to go bottom side. Now because we are fed as Kha'Zix, and you know Kayn is going to be heading down to the bottom lane fed on his own, he's also having a very good game, it's very important that you either counter gank him or get the gank off before he shows. And as you can see, look at the mobility provided by Nimbus Cloak, as well as the movement speed increase from Phase Rush. Now Rast does ult him, and as Phase Rush expires, he's able to navigate into the minion wave, avoid dying by Rast, nice CC by his teammates, gets a bit of damage off with a Q and an auto, and then ease on out. And this is where champion micro mechanics really come into play, and I did a detailed guide on 5 tips and tricks for Kha'Zix in terms of mechanics that you must know in order to navigate these situations and maximize your DPS. So again, that will be in the description. But you can see them on display here. He goes venturing into the river, runs into the Rast, now it's time to fight. And as a side note, the Kayn really shouldn't be here. Now what the Kha'Zix should be doing here is auto WQ to get it off before he gets W'd by the Rast. It's a very quick burst combo. If your passive is up, you want to be using that auto attack. However, in this case, he's not in range to auto attack and the Rast sees him with the control ward. That means you just must get your Q off. That's of course the most important thing. He's able to follow that up with the passive auto. He activates his R to move away from the TP with as much haste as possible. Once the Rast ejects himself from the Kha'Zix's soul because he didn't like what he saw, he's able to get another Q off, he misses his W, he Rs again, and then auto Qs. And even in the situations where your teammates don't rotate, if you play these situations correctly and well, you will come out on top more often than not, especially with these buffs. And again, the same can be said for other assassin junglers, specifically Rengar in these sort of bush situations. Now, as we have 2 other games in different scenarios to look at just in terms of how to maximize your jungler, we won't spend too much longer in this game. Just understand that if you find yourself in this situation versus another jungler doing well, also scales and also farms well, ensure you are now moving to lanes to clean up any pushes, anyone that's low, use your rune set's mobility, and of course the Kha'Zix at level 11 will evolve R just so he can keep on doing this playstyle, staying active, isolating, and skirmishing. Any cleanup kills are yours, make sure you're getting those objectives, but the most important thing is when it comes to the team fights, your phase rush plays very differently to other runes. The ultimate evolve allowing you to avoid unit collision and the phase rush with Nimbus Cloak giving you a ton of movement speed. Ensure you are moving in and out of fights very quickly and you have the right target focus. The last thing you want to do is clump up with a Rast that's really fed. Zone and keep other squishies out of the fight like the Akali, just kill her maybe. If the Thresh gets detached, make sure you are also taking care of him. This lets the rest of your team have a 4v3 scenario, and they are able to actually peel and disengage while you have annihilated the enemy backline. Now that was very much a hybrid approach game, balancing farming with ganking, reading the enemy jungler, getting scraps where you can, and using phase rush to move in and out of fights. However, what happens if you actually still want to go harvest, you want to use that Q evolve instead of R evolve, and you want to be really active early? Well then, you can of course easily consider a 3 camp clear, and this is very nice against things like Volibear, or basically anything that can invade you, because when Kha'Zix does more than 3, 4, 5 camps, he starts to get a little low and it's a little more risky to stay out. As a Volibear main, I absolutely adore these Kha'Zix bugs who just, creep around the jungle thinking there's no stress, well then a bear shows up and basically, does what a bear does to a bug. So if you're looking to have an active game and really stack the harvest, yes, you could farm and wait and play smart until post 6, however if you're not going R evolve and you're going Q evolve, you want to maximize your damage as soon as possible. So buff grump, pretty standard. See a gankable lane on the bottom side, EQ combo to get into range and do some damage, Chase done with autos, W, another Q, and off you go up to the crab. Should the enemy junglers show themselves like the volley bear does in this case, and to be clear, I'm not a huge fan of a 5-cam volley, I really think you need to get on the map just like this Kha'Zix. Avert your gaze to the seductive eyes of the crab, head to the bottom lane, get another 2 kills for your team. All of a sudden, you've done 3 cams, you got a crab, 3 harvest stacks, and you're 1-0-2. And it's worth noting, you have a Yasuo Zac bottom lane, so yes, it's very gankable in terms of CC and combinations, and any dashless ADC should always be punished. And in this case, with this particular game style, sure, you could afford to go Nimbus Cloak, but in this case, the absolute focus plus water walking gives him all the skirmish power in the rivers and in ganks that he really needs to get fed. Sometimes you don't want the utility, you just want raw upfront void level burst. Also, you don't need the attack speed glyph because, well, you're just looking to fight a lot, not farm, so more AD, the better. So in this case, off he goes through mid lane, Raptors, Krugs, reset. Now you can afford to go down to the Wolves and the Grump. Those level 1 camps will now reset at a higher level, giving you crucial experience around the level 6 range. But if you want to see a wandering mid laner trying to feed the duck bread, go and punish her and tell her it's actually not good for them. If Volibear's ganking on the bottom side, even if he isn't, let's go look for another gank. We're not looking to fall back into camps. Stack the harvest, get a huge lead, and buy the Duskblade first. But unlike in our first example, don't overgreed. If your team dies and you kill the volley, just back on out. However, one of the worst things you can do as an assassin jungler after these situations is detach and run away. Watch this. Over the wall, set face checks, set dies. He spam pings the minimap in confusion because that was an obscene amount of isolated damage. And I'd like to explain to you what the Syndra is doing, I just don't know. I could provide some pseudo-analysis, but I think she's just very confused, and now she's dead again. Hey, free kill, you take those in solo queue, it will happen in all your games. Do not tell me that if this happens in Challenger Korea, it doesn't happen in your game. Now at this point, this is radically different to the previous example. He is spam ganked, he sequenced his camps one time, he stuck around in areas, picked people off when they pathed badly, he's taken a dragon, now he's 5-0-2. And the thing is, when you play like this with this Q evolve, and you get this Duskblade first, I don't always recommend it, but it's the Rengar style, there's very few champions in the game that can actually beat you 1v1 if you have the leg up, especially with Absolute Focus Rune. And now what you will see as I speak more generally about his build is that he takes objectives and he farms very well, and then basically in a period of 9 minutes goes from 5 kills to 17. This is the value of taking a Dark Harvest gank heavy approach with this champion in his current state, which is extremely strong. Should you pick the right lane to gank, basically it's giving you a stage to show the beauty of purple grasshoppers. Deep vision, sit in bushes, annihilate. If fights break out, kill the backline, no one can deal with you, you have Duskblade and R. His combos are fluid, his traps are perfect, he roams the map with impunity. Absolute total domination control, basically all from the first 5 minutes. He does finish Warrior and then goes Ghostblade because he's really giga fed. But as always, pay attention to the Edge of Night into a last wisp of itemization, although I will give an infographic on the final moments of this video with all the builds that you need. Right, but if you don't have a balanced early game approach versus farming jungler, if you don't have a really nice aggressive game where you can get free kills and gankable lanes, and maybe you're against an invading jungler like a Graves or something like a Nidalee. In this case, as an assassin, playing from behind or playing against pressure is one of the most difficult situations, and also why many assassin players fail to even get fed in the first place. And in this case, when you do a solo buff start just to, avoid the idea of them knowing where you do begin, you always run the risk of the Graves doing a buff into an invade. Now the benefit of having Electrocute, of course, is that you have guaranteed damage to a target, and basically it's enough to annihilate anyone when you get fed. The thing is, in sustained fights, when you actually need to fight a Graves like you see in this situation, well, you don't really have enough damage to kill him, and now you don't have the stacking up ramping time of Conqueror, you don't get the benefit of getting a harvest stack and leaving the situation, and you don't have phase rush to manipulate, move, and get out of trouble. You just do your damage, and now what? Here you have to actually flash away. Obviously, you do have Nimbus Cloak and Water Walking, but that doesn't really help you when you're on a fight against your Raptor Pit. Obviously, Relentless vs Ravenous is a little bit of a preference choice. Relentless is nice when you don't have movability or phase rush, and obviously lets you get around the map very quickly. However, in the case of the Graves is basically being very irritating, and he runs into your jungle and tries to invade you again, you simply have to leave. The worst thing you can do here when your lanes are not able to really rotate and help you at this point, and you just have to 1v1 it, it's better off refocusing your attention elsewhere. And the sooner you do it, the quicker you will get ahead of the Graves in terms of pathing and avoid these uncomfortable situations in the future. Crab is up, let me take that. You know Graves took your blue, we'll have to do Crab, and then we'll look to either gank like he does here, or go and basically do his red side. This means you're free to take his Grump, Wolves, and now reset. Once you have reset, don't go bottom side. You know there's no wolf camp yet, there's no blue camp, there's no crab. You can't really afford to go and gank that pushing lane. Let's sequence our Krugs, which are tier 1, into our Raptors, which are tier 2. Optimize the camps that have already respawned to gain as much experience as possible when you are behind or being invaded. In this instance, all you have to do is farm the camps while Graves isn't invading you. If he's spam ganking, if he's applying the pressure, that's okay. We are an omnivore jungler. You can afford to get your experience and be very cautious with your approach. If you see an opportunity to maybe kill the Zoe while she's going back to base, try and hit your W, but either way, it's a nice attempt. And the biggest thing about these kinds of games, when you basically aren't able to do the first two strategies in this video, is when Graves commits to ganking lanes and showing on the opposite side of buffs, which is great because you shouldn't let the buffs dictate your pathing totally. It does allow the Kha'Zix to say, hey, thank you very much, I appreciate the donation, and you at least get the catch-up experience. So in these cases, avoiding him and getting whatever camps you can is your best bet. From here, you have your ultimate. You can use it on a lane that is looking particularly spicy, but if the enemy jungler's ganking, hold off, capitalize, maybe pick up a kill, and now you can reset. Basically, at this point, you're back in the game and you can approach it as normal. You've kept up an experience in farm, you have a huge lead, you've picked up a kill, now you can afford to get back on the map. And yes, it delays it by 5-6 minutes, and that's the cost of playing versus a jungler that's this kind of meta. But short of finding Rengar and stabbing out his other eye, there's really not much you can do. Clean up gank on the top lane straight from base, do the Herald, go back top lane, use it again, reverse the field, force pressure, open the map. Alleviate the stress on your team from the Graves by basically camping another lane and getting that tower down. Rotate to the mid lane and now you can see the power of the Electrocute. Flash full combo into the Zoe and she just immediately dies. And you'll see some highlights of him moving around the map, getting some pickups here and there with the kills. The thing is with Electrocute, with Kha'Zix's isolation damage, is that a lot of the time it's pure overkill. He has evolved E in this case because it is a full squishy team comp, the mobility is very nice for resets, and with Electrocute it guarantees you at least one kill provided, that something weird doesn't happen. Although you have a good overview of all the different runes that Kha'Zix can use, and by extension what all other assassins can use, what different situations you can find yourselves in, ganking or farming, pure ganking, maybe pure farming. And on your screen now, you will see the different builds examples that go with the rune sets. If you go in Conqueror, it can be very common to go Cleaver into your Duskblade. If you're going for Harvest Electrocute, very commonly you will go for Duskblade into perhaps an Edge of Night or Yumu's if they have no CC and you're very far ahead. But you do have the option of adding in that Cleaver if you need to shred versus, any sort of bruiser or tankier types. The same goes here for Phase Rush. Overall, in terms of evolve, you can still go R first, but the consensus seems to be Q is just very, very stonky. And if you need wave clear or isolation, you can basically go W evolve second. If you want the skirmish ability and teamfight ability, you can go R evolve. And if you are versus a full squishy team comp with Electrocute, the E evolve is on the table. But in a lot of games, you will see the utility of W and R evolve come through significantly better than E evolve, except in fringe cases or in smurf cases. If you are looking at how to teamfight as an assassin, I do have my video on that, as well as how to close games. That's particularly not unique to Kha'Zix, and that's the same for everyone, so if that's an area of problems for you, head to those videos. But as always, best of luck using Kha'Zix. He's very strong at the moment. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you were able to enjoy and learn something. Please do like, share, and comment if you did. Now my voice is tired, so I'm going to leave you. Don't forget to please subscribe, and of course watch me in Twitch Rivals over the next coming week. And as always, I will see you all in the next tutorial.